Hi everybody, we are learning to program in C#. Today we'll create a small application. In this introductory lesson on C#, we'll use a conditional statement to validate a condition and perform some simple calculations. We will use Microsoft Visual Studio. Of course, you have many other options. So start Microsoft Visual Studio. If you are working in Microsoft Windows, you can click Start and then you look for Visual Studio 2022. That's the version I'm using. After starting it, you'll be presented with Visual Studio 2022. In that dialog box, in the Visual Studio 2022, you can click Create a New Project. In the Create a New Project dialog box, in the Language combo box, you can select C# or all languages. And in the list of project templates, you click Console App. Then you click Next. In the Configure Your New Project dialog box, you can change the name of the application to anything you want. For my example, I will use Payroll Evaluation. And you can set the path to anything you want. When you are ready, you click Next. In the Additional Information dialog box, in the Framework combo box, you can select the highest version of .NET you have. On mine is .NET 9.0 standard term support. When you are ready, you click Create. You will be presented with a document or a file named program.cs with a single line of code. I'm going to put the code we will use, and then I will explain what that code does. The main class used in C# is called console. It's a static class, and it's created in a namespace or a library named system. And since it's a static class, we can signal it in the top section of the file or the document, and that will help us when we are typing the code. So I will write using static system console. That way I don't have to write console in the rest of the code. After that, the first line of code allows us to put a title for the document. The next 5 lines are just used to make the result look good when it displays to the user. To create our application, we need to request some information from the user. The first piece of information we will request is a first name. To do that, we declare a string variable named first name. And then we assign the readLine method to it to request that value. The next piece of information we request is the last name. And once again, we use the readLine to get that information. We store it in a string variable named last name. The next piece of information we need is the hourly salary. This time we declare a double value named H salary. We call the readLine method to get that value. We pass it to a double.parse method to convert that value to a double, and we prompt the user for the hourly salary. The next 3 lines are just used to make the code intuitive, easy to use. After that, we need to get time worked values from the user. We start with the time worked on Monday. To do that, we declare a double variable named Monday. We call the readLine method from the system console class, and we pass that readLine method to the parse method to convert that value to a double. We use the Monday prompt to let the user know that we are getting the value for the time worked on Monday. We do the same for Tuesday, the same for Wednesday, same thing for Thursday, same thing for Friday. After getting those values, we add them to get the time worked for the whole week. and we store the result in a double variable named time worked. At this time, we behave as if the user didn't work overtime. So we declare some variables that can be used to simply evaluate a payroll. So we have a double variable named reg time, which will hold the same value as the time worked. Since at this time we consider that the user didn't work overtime, we declare a variable named overtime, but we set its value to 0. Then we need to calculate the regular pay. Remember, at this time, we are still assuming that the user didn't work overtime. So we simply multiply the hourly salary by the time worked, and we store the result in a double variable named regular pay or reg pay. Once again, the overtime pay is 0 because we assume that the user didn't work overtime. But as it happens, the user may work overtime, and we want to calculate if that happens. So we use an if conditional statement with the greater than operator. The condition checks if the employee worked over 40 hours. If that's the case, we set the regular time to 40. We calculate the overtime by subtracting 40 from the time worked. For the regular time, we multiply the hourly salary by 40 since the user worked over 40 hours. For the overtime pay, we calculate the overtime salary, which is the salary and a half. We multiply it by the overtime, and we assign it to the overtime pay. At this time, we may have a regular pay and an overtime pay that were calculated. We add them and we assign the value to a variable named net pay, and that variable is a double. The rest of the code is to display the results to the user. So to test the application, if you are working in Microsoft Visual Studio, on the main menu, you can click Debug, Start without debugging. So at this time, some values will be requested from you, such as the first name. You can type any value you want. For the last name also, you type any value you want, any name. And for the hourly salary, you also type a number you want. For the time worked, we will provide the values that can be less than 40, where the total will be less than 40. So for Monday, I would type 7, press enter. For Tuesday, I would type 8, I press enter. For Wednesday, I type 6.5, I press enter. Thursday, I type 8.5, I press enter. And Friday, I type 7.5, and I press enter. And as you can see, the result shows us that the employee worked regular time, there was no overtime, and this is the salary. Especially if you are working in Microsoft Visual Studio, to close the DOS window, you can press any key. In the previous section, we used a greater than operator to check a condition. That operator has an opposite, which is the less than or equal operator. We will use that operator this time to show the difference in processing a conditional statement. Normally, the calculations are made in a reverse. So the regular time this time is set to 40, assuming that the user worked overtime, or the employee worked overtime. So the regular time, we set it to 40. For the overtime, we subtract 40 from time worked, and that will give us the value for the overtime. The regular pay, we multiply the hourly salary by 40, and we get the regular pay. We store the value in a double variable named reg pay. For the overtime pay, we first get the time and a half, the salary and a half, which is the hourly salary times 1.5. We multiply the result by overtime, and we store the result in in a double variable named overtime. This time, to find out if the user worked less than 40 hours in a week, we use the less than or equal operator. And in a if conditional statement, we set the regular time to the time worked, which would be less than 40. The overtime is set to 0 this time, because in this case, the user didn't work overtime. For the regular pay, we multiply the hourly salary by the time worked, and the overtime is set to 0. Everything else is done it remains the same. You don't change anything. To test the result, on the main menu, if you are working Microsoft Visual Studio, you click Debug, start without debugging. Once again, you provide the values that are requested, such as first name. You type the first name, you press enter. You type the last name, and you press enter. You type the hourly salary, you press enter. This time for the time worked, on Monday I would type 9.5. On Tuesday I type 8. Wednesday I type 10.5. Thursday I type 9. I press enter. Friday I type 10.5 and I press enter. And now we get the values, the appropriate values. Now we see that the employee worked overtime 7 hours and a half, or 7 hours and 30 minutes, and then the employee got overtime pay. Also, the salary is appropriate. That's it. A link for the code is available in the comment section. If you have any question, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.